Hi guys, I'm Mike and this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to the channel, and today we have a special guest onto the channel. We are welcomed today Gus Bowers, who races in the British Championship in GT4 cars, actually driving a McLaren, obviously a name well renowned for kind of F1 viewers. But yes, there is a world of F1, and we're just going to take time to kind of go into the life a little bit of a young driver, like we've done before in some junior single-seater drivers coming up through the ranks. So, Gus, welcome to the channel.
No, thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this too. Obviously, we've kept most of this. The Understeer Podcast, I know you do a bit of writing for him on his blog post there with Fergus. Obviously, you have a good connection with him, but he's kind of how we got connected with these things. So you've done an interview actually with Fergus before, haven't you?
Yeah. I had an interview with him. It was great. Great lad. Get on very well with him.
Fantastic in terms of that. So you can definitely check that out. I'll leave a link in the description to Fergus because I'm sure he'll kind of include some bits that I miss out in this. But basically, first question I want to get into, Gus, is how did you get into racing? And what made you suddenly go, you know what, I want to do this properly?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I took a very unorthodox route into racing. So I didn't do any karting, and I was like a huge F1 fan for so long. And when I was probably 15, my dad did essentially there was an auction, and one of the prizes on the auction was it was a charity auction, and one of them was you get a day with a bloke called Rob Wilson who trains a lot of the F1 drivers. And my dad thought, "Oh, that's cool. I'll do that." And then he actually won it, and then he said, "Well, actually, I'm not going to gain anything from this. I'm an old man now." He won't like me saying that, but and then and he said, "Well, Gus, you love racing. You're quite good on the PlayStation. Give it a go and see what happens." And so I went along to this day. He does it in a diesel Vauxhall Astra, so you're not in like a supercar of any kind. And he essentially just teaches you the fundamental basics of what you should be feeling in the car, the weight transfer, what the tyre's doing underneath you, suspension, everything. And it was really good. And kind of at the end of it, I think we got on very well. And he said you should really consider just trying racing. Doesn't matter what level, just see what it's like, see how it all goes. So I did a lot of research and kind of what route I wanted to do. I mean, do I do the single seater route or do I do GT route? And kind of cost wise, I didn't know how good I was. So single seaters are very expensive. So it wasn't. We decided to go with Ginetta's because it was just the best option. It was good value for money. It was a good series, and it's a very good feeder series. I mean, we've seen some great drivers, Lando Norris being one of them. It's gone through Ginetta's, so it was kind of a no-brainer, and kind of that's how I got into racing. Yeah, so it all started from there, really.
Yeah, that is a massively unorthodox say because usually it's I've been karting. I went on this karting day for a thing, and then I was going there. Or some other examples is the kind of Ayrton Simmons and Bart Horston guys I've had on the channel, and like Ayrton was kind of karting in Spain. Bart karted a little bit casually in Australia, and then got into Formula Fords out there. But yeah, Ginetta is a really good championship, isn't it? To kind of find your feet in and have a go.
Yeah, 100%. It's so competitive and kind of you're against all sorts. I mean, you've got, like you said, karters that have been doing it since they were kids, people that haven't been racing for long. It's just crazy. The kind of different array of drivers you come across, and it's so competitive. It was stepping in the deep end of it for me. I'd never even I probably had been in the car 6 times before my first race, so it was a bit of a scary moment, but it's all worked out. Yeah, so
that is certainly a baptism of fire.
yeah,
To kind of go into it, it's just like, yeah, I've been in a car 6 times. And from my understanding of genetic stuff, isn't it? You pay 30 grand or at least some somewhere in that region, and you get the car, you kind of full for the season type thing, and you get the crew, team, whatever, and actual entry into the championship.
So it depends what championship you enter. So
Hmm.
they've got about 38 different championships going on. So it's quite. I think that's the G40 Cup. So
Okay.
it's a more amateur level, and like you said, this is why Ginetta is so good for people to start racing, because you've got so many levels in which you can enter motorsport at in Ginetta. So this is for people that kind of maybe aren't looking to make a career in it, but they do want to to be in a competitive series, and if it works, they know they can then go forward with it and maybe do a more competitive championship with it. I did the GT5 challenge, so it was it wasn't a GT4 car. It's the same chassis as the Ginetta Juniors and the Ginetta G40.
Mm.
It's just on slick tyres and it has a bit more power. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So the reason I did that was because I could have done juniors because I was 16, I think, at the time, but they're on road tyres, and I was like, well, there's no point in wasting a year kind of getting to learn one tyre and car when I'm never going to do that ever again, because race cars, as we know, often on slick tyres. So I
Mm.
was like, that was the biggest thing. I was like, might as well do GT5. Bit more kind of more experienced drivers in there. And as I found in my first year, there are some very experienced drivers that really know their craft quite well. So, like I said, it was a bit of a step in the deep end, but Jeanette is a great championship because there's so many different levels in which you can enter, depending on how confident you are as a driver.
It sounds fantastic, and it is just a mad one to kind of enter yourself. But that is reassuring that there are so many levels, and I think often the stigma around motorsport is it is such an expensive thing to do, and obviously I still imagine it wasn't a cheap thing
Yeah,
for you guys to enter and put yourselves in, but there are levels in terms of the single seater isn't the be all and end all. And
yeah,
of course, you obviously spoke about, I mean, Lando Norris is probably not the best example with huge financial backing with his
yeah,
dad, but entering Ginetta's in that aspect, his dad was probably like, "Well, before I pump a load of money into you, let's actually
exactly.
see if you're any good at this, son."
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's interesting that there are so many levels for young drivers, but even guys maybe in 20s, 30s who
yeah.
just want to give it a go, and it's nice to give that experience and feel. And you probably know from racing 3 years, there's no other feeling like it than being in a race car.
Yeah, 100%. And you see drivers do great things coming from Ginetta's. Like you said, motorsport isn't cheap. It's about kind of how you enter, where you enter. It's not cheap, but what I'd say is it's kind of, if you do find the backing, Ginetta's is a great place to go, because like I said, there's so many levels, and it's really good to increase your networking, your reach, the people you meet there. If you do juniors, and some of the GT5 races are supporting the touring cars, so you can watch it on ITV. And for a driver, especially if you're, I guess, similar to what I'm doing now, is when you're trying to make your way in motorsport, you want that. You want to be on TV. You want people to see you. It's good for sponsorship, and so yeah, that's why it's such a great place to start. Definitely.
Brilliant. And so, yeah, we'll get into that first scene. So you spent 2 seasons in Ginetta, the first one of those being in 2018. Talk me through that a little bit.
Um,
Sorry,
it
I'll
was
sneeze first. Jesus, sorry about
that's
that.
fine. No, it was a very difficult year for me. I mean, like I said, I didn't have the most amount of testing. First round was at Alton Park, which is a, like a very difficult circuit. It's a beautiful circuit. It's very difficult, very windy, lots of fast corners. And it was hammering down with rain, like absolute, like torrential. I realised going to the grid for the first race that I'd never done a practice start, so I didn't know I didn't know how to go off the line. I qualified really badly. I qualified like 28th or so. It really was. I was never expecting to be up there. I knew it was going to be just all about learning, taking it all in, and just trying to enjoy it. And whatever happens, happens. So I got to the grid and I the lights went out and I stalled it, and I was just like, no, come on. And so I managed to finish 22nd or something. So I gained like 5, 6 places, and that was good. And so it was whenever I'm talking to like a driver that's starting, I just say to them, it can't be worse than what I did. I stalled it on my first race. But yeah, like I said, the season was difficult. I was getting better every race. A Ginetta is a tricky little car to drive. They're very twitchy cars, and they're all about weight transfer, and it's quite old school in the sense that a Ginetta, it's like it's four-wheel drifting essentially. It's always sliding about, and for me, that was what I found difficult. Like, you, in your mind, you don't want the car to slide. You just want it to have grip. But the fastest way is to slide the car, and kind of learning how to get the weight over the front, and then when you apply power, it will take the weight away from the front. It will give you understeer, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. So it was all about learning, especially like my first year was all about learning. And I was kind of in the midway point of the season. I was about probably 15th. That was kind of my average finishing position. And then went to Knock Hill, and it was a it was a it was a weird week. So we had to test on the Tuesday, and me and my teammate were out, and he he had spun out. A car in front of him panicked. They started spinning, and they hit into me, who hit me into my teammate. So both our cars had been written off. So it wasn't the best start of the week. And luckily the team had a spare car and stuff, so I was able to go out for the weekend, and I qualified 20th or something, and I finished 10th, and that was a big moment for me. It was like my aim was to get one top 10 finish that year. And kind of, man, I knew, I was like, it was a horrible race. It was raining. It was just carnage, cars everywhere. It was like a 70s F1 race. There were just cars on fire on the side of the circuit. They would just keep going to get the race done. So that was, yeah, like I said, that was a big race for me, Knock Hill. And it was with my first year was with HHC, the team I raced for this year. So that was like kind of a big moment. And yeah, so after that, everything started improving a lot more.
Yeah, and I noticed from kind of reading a few bits and bobs, I think you've been interviewed on, or just kind of little quotes when going into the British GT Championship this year. You said one of your biggest strengths actually is the changeable
Yeah.
conditions. You actually really enjoy racing in the rain.
Yeah. I think one of my strengths that I'm quite a consistent driver, so I'm quite good at staying out of trouble. Which, first of all, when there's a rainy race, if you can stay out of trouble, you're guaranteed to gain quite a few positions just from
Mm.
people falling off, people making mistakes, because we all do it. And yeah, changeable conditions. I think as soon as you're confident, especially when it's wet, you you um you just thrive. You see it with every driver. I mean, the extreme example is Senna. If you watch him in that Tolman in Monaco '84, he was in an abysmal car. It was an awful car, and he was eating 3 seconds a lap into Lauda, and overtook him. Was eating into Prost. He also had, people don't know, you had Stefan Beloff was behind him, also catching the leaders as well, and they were both two outrageously talented drivers. There's not much you can do in the drive, but when it's wet, suddenly it's an equal playing field, and I think that's in my mind. I was thinking when it rained, especially my first year, I was thinking, well, you know what? We're all in the same boat here. It's a wet race, and we're all going to struggle for grip. So let's make the most. And from there, I just learned, I think, how to drive the car correctly in the wet conditions.
I mean, that shows an incredible level of adaptability as a driver, because it's not the easiest thing to drive around. I imagine, obviously, I mean, give an experience of what the view is like driving in a race car. Obviously, you got the headlights, you got the windscreen wipers on in kind of rainy conditions. I mean, normally, me driving down the motorway or something, getting stuck behind a lorry, it's a nightmare
Yeah.
in terms of that front. What's it like in a race car when
Oh,
you're trying to drive as fast as possible and you've
it's
got rain splashing in the face?
yeah. It's just, I can't describe it, because so we were lucky in Ginetta's that the rear lights are quite bright, but
Mm.
honestly, all I could see, especially that Knock Hill race, because that was probably the wettest race I've ever done. was you can't see anything, so I couldn't even see the end of my bonnet. What I could see were two circle lights ahead, and I knew that that was kind of where the car was ahead. So judging by when the brake lights went on, I could then know roughly where the corner was. So that's why driving the wet is you can see where they're braking, and you just think, well, can I get away braking maybe 5 meters later than they are? And that's why it's a lot easier to make progress in the wet. But yeah, it's sometimes not fun when you can't see anything, and but it is horrendous. Cameras are quite good at looking through rain. When I watched the race back, it didn't look that bad. I was like, oh, that was fine. I don't know what the fuss is about. When you're in the car, you can't see anything. It's honestly just looking through spray. Windscreen wipers are useless, especially in Ginettas. They don't work. Like honestly, they do absolutely nothing. And so yeah, that is just horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous.
That is mental, and yeah, what a crazy experience. And I think you finished around about it. Was it 20th in the championship
Yeah,
in your first season?
yeah, yeah. 20th of the championship. Like I said, I was never expecting. I think I was a bit disappointed in myself. I wanted to do better, but I was never expecting to be a title contender. So that's why the second year of it was quite a pivotal year for me, because I
Mm.
really needed to do well to know that I could carry on racing. So, yeah.
I mean, but to be honest with you, this is you haven't had any professional karting championships. This
Yeah.
this is literally sixth times you've been in the car beforehand going your season. I think 20. I mean, it's great as your ambition. Obviously, it's something that you want driving forward, and we'll get on to kind of talking about your future
Yeah.
in terms of it. But that's that hunger and want to improve, and not being happy, going, oh well, 20th was okay considering. You're like, no, I'm disappointed with 20th. That's kind of what drives you on as a competitor, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And like kind of going back to it, like you said, like I said, I hadn't done karting or anything. I would also just like to say that for anyone that is or thinks it's too late, because I was 15 and I was such a huge motor fan, but I never even thought I'd be a racing driver. You think about it when you're a kid, and kind of if you haven't karted and stuff, but you're just like, well, it's not going to happen, and that's fine. I think we all accept it, and that's why I was in a position where I was like, well, it's not going to happen. That's fine. I love racing. I love watching it. It's great. What I would say is, it that's the beauty of racing. It is never too late. It's not. Don't give up if you can find backing and you can find maybe a championship that is right for you. Just go, honestly, go for it, because there's never a wrong moment to enter. That's what I'd say. Is like there's never. It's always the right time, if you see what I
Mm.
mean. So yeah,
I
that's
I think
yeah,
that's pretty great advice on that one. But we'll go on to your second season. So yeah, obviously you were saying second season was important to go whether you're gonna look to carry this on and properly try and pursue this any further and build on that 20th from your first season. You changed team as well,
yeah.
didn't you? What was it like? First of all, changing team and how obviously they operated compared to your team that you're obviously back with now, and yeah, what was it like? Did you feel a lot more confident going into your second season?
Yeah, so I was, like I said, when it was my first year, every circuit I went to, every experience was new. So you get that kind of overwhelming feeling. Second year, you're then used to it now. You've done it all once. You know what to expect. New team, Zentech, they were great. They have a very good track record in Ginettas. So I was really looking forward to it. I was going with my teammate as well, Scott McKenna. We were both going to Zentech, so there was still that familiarity with each other. And it, the support from the team was just phenomenal. I mean, they were really good with providing driver coaches, a good car, good data, just good support all around. Always making sure, and that's so important for a driver to have confidence in your team, because if you don't have confidence, you're not going to be confident in the car, and that will show with results. But I mean, I went from finishing kind of 20th, 15th to 20th to consistently top 10, and I think, although of course a big part was probably myself naturally improving, it's also Zentech really really instrumental in throwing support at me, and yeah, it was still a learning curve, but ultimately it was a much better year for me the second year.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. And I think obviously you're the spotlight seat, you're the driver. That's the one that, people as fans and, outsiders, they naturally draw themselves. They don't necessarily think Mercedes the team. They go Lewis Hamilton, or they go,
Yeah,
well, who's driving well? Well, Daniel Ricciardo's doing well for Renault, as an example. At the moment, you're the guy in the team who's got the spotlight. Everyone looks at the driver, but it is a team sport, and those things behind the scenes, all that, the data, the knowledge of the setup of a car in terms of the confidence of, giving you as well as the rest of the team, it is a huge thing in motorsport, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely massive. And like you actually touched an important subject there. What you learn, like with stuff like car setup, you can really take that with you. You've got that. Then you're unlocking info, you're unlocking data, and that's so valuable to have as a driver, to collect the experience. And going forward in your career, every experience you have, whether it's good or bad, you can learn from, you can build on. And that's a very important thing as a driver, that you can then take to other teams, because each team has their own way of working, and each driver has their own way of working, and each driver has their own experiences. And the more you can give to a team, the more they can give back to you as well. So like I said, it's so important, I think.
Yeah, and it's building that great working partnership. And for you, obviously being outside that environment, the quicker you can work on the feedback that you give to a team, and the understanding, and going to sort of tracks, understanding, you know, the kind of setups of sort of tracks. Obviously, you probably know the British tracks quite well now,
Yeah.
in terms of that aspect. You can always know them better, but you have a good understanding of them and what type of things you might be looking in. So that for there gives you a head start, I imagine, in practice is in qualifying, sorting out the car for the race, so that then when you're in the race, you have a lot more confidence and you can perform better yourself because the car's going to do what you want it to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big thing, is especially with my first year, because I hadn't ever had experience, I didn't know what kind of car I liked. We were turning up to each circuit with a neutral car, so there wasn't really a setup on it. And then from there, you'd usually practice, you'd build, you go, well, I want more front end, I don't know, more rear traction, something like that. And but in the second year, it was straight away, well, I know around here I like to have a lot of front end, and I don't mind if it's oversteery, or vice versa. Like Thruxton, for example, is a very scary circuit, so you don't want a sharp front end. You want it to be quite an understeery car, because you could gain a lot of lap time from that. And like you said, that's something in my first year I never had, but my second year I did. So straight away going into practice, you're already a few steps ahead, because you already know what the car should be like, what you want it to be like. And as soon as you get the car like that, it's just about you finding the lap time yourself and where you need to improve. If you're looking at data, if you're looking at your teammates' data, as much as they might not want you to, that sort of thing. So yeah.
Well, he's your direct competitor, isn't
Yeah.
he? And it sounds like, obviously, from speaking to this, you had quite a good relationship with your teammate. But it is a difficult one. How do you manage that? Because essentially, they are your direct rival. But did you get on with your teammate?
Yeah, me and Scott, we got on. He's a very talented driver. His family, sorry, own a nice driving experience in Norway. So
Okay.
from a young age, he's always been on. He's outrageously talented. So for me going into racing, it was it made it easier, because I was learning from him a lot. And in the second year, I was starting to be able to bring it to him, kind of like, um, and that was nice for me, because obviously, like I said, ultimately they say it's your teammate, but they're your rival. You're in the same car of the same team, so they're the one that you have to beat. So we got on very well, and I think the beauty of it is that instead of going against each other, we instead of doing like a Hamilton Rosberg, we did a Ricardo Verstappen, and we really instead of going against each other, we were working with each other, and it was improving both of our results hugely. And so I think that's something that really played into our advantage, especially in that second year.
That's fantastic. And yeah, I think you probably can get away with it more of those kind of junior
Yeah.
categories because you both have that goal of, well, if we both work together, the team looks better, the car's better, gives me a better chance to kind of shine, show off, and more chance for me to progress up the ladder. That is motorsport to my long-term goal, which would be for you guys competing in motorsport professionally.
Yeah, 100%. And also, I'd say it is the team you're racing for. You're not racing for yourself, and so you have to think about there are moments on circuit where they're behind you or you're behind them and you're attacking, and you do have to be careful. You do have to think, well, I could lunge him, but is it worth is it worth both our cars out of the race? And
Mm.
well, our results shows that we won the constructors championship that year, so it worked out really well in the end. And like you said, especially in the junior categories, when you're finding your way, you don't want to have that reputation of being the teammate that takes everyone off. You want to be the guy that you want to be teammates with, because you're going to learn from them and they're going to learn from you.
Superb, and that obviously winning that constructors, massive. And I presume now seems the perfect time to move on to, obviously you progressed into the British GT Championship, racing now GT4 cars. You're in a McLaren, obviously back with the team that you started Ginetta's with.
Yeah.
How did that opportunity come around? And I presume you took the idea of, well, actually, I'm pretty good at this and I want to really give this a shot. How did those opportunities come around?
Yeah, so we always we always stayed in contact with HAC, the team I started with. Really good relationship. I mean, because we were GT5 supported British GT, so we're always at the same circuit with them. And kind of towards the end of the year, everyone wants to know each other's plans. Everyone it's absolutely manic. Everyone's trying to find a seat. People are still trying to find out what their budget will be, and it's difficult because the problem a lot of teams have is drivers sign for a team, the promising budget, but then don't get it. So that's a problem. But myself and HHC had full confidence in each other that we wouldn't run into problems like that. And so, yeah, we were just talking, and I, in our minds, and me and my dad between us had always wanted to do 2-year cycles in each category. So I was like, 2 years in Ginetta, and then I would, if I feel I'm at the level, would like to move on to British GT4. And so we looked at other championships like Porsche Carrera Cup and the Ginetta GT4 Super Cup, and they're all great championships. But to me, British GT was the one to go to. So yeah, we got in touch, and they were doing British GT, and they had some seats available. And so obviously you can't just jump into that. It's such a big investment. So we did a few tests, seeing whereabouts lap times were and stuff, and it was all really good. And there was another guy, my current teammate Chris, who was talking to the team as well at the time, and we got on very well. We did a test together at Silverstone, and we got on really well. Really, like I said, learning from each other again. We both come from. I came from Ginetta, he came from like radical type cars, so really different backgrounds. And so that's kind of how it came about. And I did a few tests for other teams, but the familiarity and the support I felt with HAC really is what helped me think, yeah, this is the team that I think not only is right for me, is that I could stick with these guys for a while.
And motorsport is kind of like an environment where you have to be a quick learner. So you were deep end first season, you improved, win that constructors championship second season. We're partway through the 2020 championship with British GT at the moment. You've had 5 races so far, and you've now, obviously, up until that point, you hadn't secured a win or a podium at that stage, and now you've got a win and 2 podiums under your belt in 5 races, and that must feel incredible. Just making that improvement.
Yeah, massively, and it was a big thing. It was 2 years. As much as I loved Ginetta, there was that cloud hanging over me. I was that weight on my shoulders. Like, come on, I need to get a podium. And obviously, in such an elite championship, especially my first year, I really wanted. I was in my mind, I was striving for it, but kind of you think, well, it might not happen. But like I said, the team just had really well put together. That McLaren, they really sussed the setup on it. And with the win at Donington, it was it was a call on my half. I had the out lap to the grid to decide if we'd start on slicks and wets, and I just thought, well, we're starting from 8th. We might as well just go on slicks. And if it's the wrong call, it's the wrong call, but we can't go too much further backwards. So we went on it, and like I said, the first 3 laps were the worst 3 laps of my life. The tyres were just cold. As we know, slicks do not work at all if there's even a hint of moisture in the air. So it was a painful 3 laps, but it all suddenly clicked, all came together, and by the halfway point of the race, we were up to second. And when I handed over to my teammate, he then got the lead of the race, and so yeah, I really wasn't expecting that, but obviously I'm not going to complain about it. And it was hard. I think all the hard work built up to that moment, like I said, changeable conditions. It kind of proved to me, like, well, yeah, maybe that is something you are quite good at, is changeable conditions, because that's what won you that race, was your decision to go on slicks, not wets like everyone else. So yeah, I certainly probably wasn't expecting it so early on, but like you said, winning a podium, I mean, you just can't be complaining at all.
No, absolutely not. You can't be from there. And obviously, you've mentioned him earlier in this podcast, renowned as one of the greatest of all time in changeable conditions in the wet, in Ayrton Senna. Obviously, at Donington Park, one of his most
Yeah,
famous races with that first lap in 1993, being on the right tyre at the right time, being able to make a tyre compound work in conditions when the others couldn't. Yeah, it must feel a massive confidence boost, and not like an ego boost. I go, oh, I'm pretty good at this, but you, you know what I mean. It must have felt amazing to get the first win for the team under your belt like that.
massively. Like you said, you can't get ahead. It's very easy to get ahead of yourself. I've won a race now. That's fine. We're going to win the championship. We know it doesn't work. We know motorsport. One weekend we saw it. Pierre Gasly. One weekend you're winning. The next you get hit on the first lap, and that's game over. So you can't get ahead of yourself. But it was that it secured the belief that actually no, we are championship contenders. And after the second round at Brands with our other podium, we're then championship leaders. So it was massive. It was huge, not only for myself but for the team that I'd entered the sport with. Them seeing me 7 seconds off the pace of my teammate in my first ever test to then leading the British GT Championship was a nice feeling for all of us, I think. And like you said, it was quite a nice place to do it. Donington Park, a lot of history. Like you said, the famous opening lap that Senna did. Obviously, it comes to mind, and so yeah, it was a very nice kind of. It was very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and so obviously, you still got the rest of this season to go. I won't obviously, put pressure on you to kind of show what you. I know just from talking to you in this, your ambition will be to win that
Yeah.
championship. From there, and how many rounds are left to go in the British GT Championship
Got
so far?
two more weekends to go. So, and there's 8 points, sorry, separating the top 5. So it's very close.
Very close. That's the exciting championship that you want. So the
Yeah.
pressure's really on, and that must be incredible for you as a driver to be in that. It's the first time, obviously, you've experienced in your short career to date of being within a championship fight, and yeah, having that pressure on.
Yeah, massively. I mean, like I said, we won at Donington, got a podium, we got third place at Brands, and we were championship leaders. And then last time at Donington, it didn't go to plan. And like I said, that's racing. It didn't go to plan, and went from leading championship down to 5th. But like I said, there's 8 points in it. It's everyone's game. Everyone's to play for. And it's a weird thing, and I still sometimes think I'm fighting for the British GT Championship. How have I done? Like, what, how have I got in this position? But like it's like I said before, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Honestly, like it's not out of grasp. If you'd have asked me 3 years ago when I was sitting my GCSEs that in 3 years' time you're going to be a title contender, I would have just laughed and gone, "Well, that's just ridiculous. Obviously, that's not going to happen." But it can happen. So yeah, for me, I still look at myself as just a big fan of motorsport. I just love it. I love everything about it. So to be in it and then actually being a title contender is just an absolutely crazy experience for me.
I mean, all the way through this kind of interview, Gus, your passion and love of motorsport has just kind of shone through in that aspect. So obviously, you did say you've outlined, 2 years of category. Obviously, things going, you never know what the future's going to hold. But what is, I presume, obviously now the goal is, you know what, I want to become a professional um, motorsport driver. What's your kind of ideal uh, goal from here? What is a championship that
Yeah,
you're viewing might be end goal?
yeah, no, it's a good question. I think it's hard to say, obviously, but my goal is I'd love to get to the WEC Championship, the WEC. Um, it's it's obviously you've got the Le Mans 24 Hours, which is one of the greatest races out there. There's, I think you've got these incredible races that happen in the world, but the Le Mans the only race where it really tests the durability of the car and the driver. Um, and that's such a big part for me. I would love that's where I'd love to end up. I don't know how, like, what route I will take to get there. Obviously, things change, things happen, but I'd like to progress up to GT3 and numerous championships in there. And yeah, like I said, my end goal is WEC, to be with a good manufacturer. Uh, Competing in the WEC Championship would be absolutely amazing.
Fantastic. And obviously, hopefully, as a series, the GT class is obviously well renowned for itself anyway and competitive. But hopefully, for the championship, in terms of getting some exposure and stuff, the hypercar changes in 2022 are going to be massive for that championship. Funnily enough, a bit like obviously the Formula One changes now coming in 2022. Yeah, it feels that really could be something that really ignites the flame in the series again.
Yeah, 100%. And like as we've seen, it's sad, but we've seen so many manufacturers leaving, and it's happening everywhere. And everyone's going to Formula E, which I do like Formula. I think it's a great championship, and I think there's a lot more they can do to improve it. And but ultimately, it's doing well. But like you said, with the hypercar change, suddenly you've had Peugeot and Honda both announced that they're going to enter a car into it, which is just fantastic. As a driver myself, I love that. I think it's great, and I think also as a fan, who doesn't love another manufacturer entering? I mean, if we could, we'd have Audi and Porsche in F1. If we in the ideal world, we'd love to see it. And so, like you said, I think this new change to the hypercars will really reignite. You've had the same kind of you've had the same manufacturers dominating GTs for a long time, and it will be nice to have a new manufacturer in. And we'd really like, I think, you as much as me would love to see them take the fight to the teams such as Ferrari and Aston Martin and Porsche have just been dominating for such a long time now.
No, absolutely, and that's part of the I think appeal, especially in the World Endurance Championship, is those manufacturers because that is the tradition of it. It's always been, a chance for the manufacturers to show their muscle in
Yeah.
terms of. And Le Mans is all about selling cars. If yeah, obviously the movie of Le Mans '66, so
Yeah.
it came out there. But it is a big thing, and if they can ignite that spark again in terms of seeing people succeed in that championship, which then makes people want to go and get their road cars again, I think it would be fantastic for the championship.
Yeah, 100%. And also, I mean, I'd love to see this happen. Also, maybe more manufacturers entering Formula One again. I really would. I think we can do nothing but respect the dominance in which Mercedes have had. That they've absolutely smashed it, and we can't take that away from them. Good on them, and I think they deserve every bit of success that they've earned because they've been phenomenal. But saying that, it would be great to see Porsche, Audi, Ferrari again, McLaren who are on the rise again, which is great. We'd all love to see not just like well, traditionally it's been Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari, and then Mercedes come along, build that fantastic car in 2014, and since then it's been a one horse race. We'd love to see. Why can't we see five manufacturers fighting for the title? Because in that's the beauty of especially GTS is you have every manufacturer that enters is fighting for that championship, and I think that's the spark that is missing in Formula One at the moment, and it would be great to see again.
No, I'd massively agree on that because it's the budget's that the main thing, and F1 always pictures itself as the pinnacle of motorsport.
Yeah,
So if you've got the pinnacle of motorsport and the real kind of high end top guys showing, you need the big names in
yeah,
the motor industry to kind of show up and compete. Part of the reason why Mercedes has been able to dominate is Ferrari are the kings of fluffing a budget, and
yeah,
Mercedes have a significantly better budget than anybody else who can kind of
yeah.
within that aspect. And so if it was brought down a little bit with the budget cap obviously coming in as well, it might make it again a little bit more of an attractive proposal for other teams to join in.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, Mercedes used that budget very well, and they. I was doing. I was listening to a podcast with. I can't remember his name. He's head of Mercedes powertrain, and he was just saying that from 2011 they were already focusing on the hybrid era, and they didn't even know what engine it was going to be yet. And I was like, well, that's just amazing, and you can't help but think, especially Ferrari, who I think still have the largest budget in F1, and and you just think like it's mad where they are. Like it is crazy. Like and then on top of that, they're very talented at ruining their strategies every race. And it's just when your drivers then telling the the team of 20 strategists what the best strategies do. I think there's a lot you've got to question about the team. I think they're probably a bit stuck in the past, a bit of the but we were once the best team, but it's you're now the fifth best team, and and it's sad. I think we all want to see Ferrari do well. I want to see every other team do well as Ferrari. So yeah, you're completely right.
Yeah, that they are an enigma in there. But bringing it back onto you, and we'll round off this interview and we'll talk about outside motorsport. I know, obviously, tomorrow, in fact, at the time of recording this, I'm not sure when it will be when this gets released, but it'll probably be a week on from this.
Okay.
But yeah, you're going to university yourself. Committing studies. Well, first of all, what are you studying, and you excited about obviously that big journey for yourself as well?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to Brighton University to study media. It was more of a thing that I'm really massively into media, that do it with A levels and stuff, and I think also it could go really hand. It can work parallel with racing. Obviously, you've also got that if it doesn't work out, you do have a degree to fall back on. But ultimately, I'd love to use it to work with me, kind of thing, and work with other people and um, use not only my expertise as a driver, but also as someone that has a degree in media. And so I'm very excited. It's going to be a challenge for sure. But I did it all with A levels and racing, so with uni having less contact hours, I'm sure it won't be as good. But like I was saying to you just before this interview, I'm going to uni and 3 days later I have to come home to go to Snetterton. So it's gonna be difficult, and I can't go too crazy in my first week. But I'm sure after the season's ended, it will be a lot more enjoyable experience.
Yeah, it is certainly going to be an unusual one. I think that's probably the fair say to go. Not many people go on that aspect, but it's so unique. And like you said, you've been smart with your degree. Media and motorsport goes
Yeah,
hand in hand, and obviously, nowadays, obviously, this is on YouTube. The kind of motorsport YouTube industries are growing and growing from
yeah,
areas you could even bring to light more the GT championships and the
yeah,
GT world onto an internet space for people, and it's something that you add an extra kind of string to your bow type of thing that also makes you appealing. And in that type of industry, it's probably couldn't hurt also in gaining sponsorships as you progress up through the ladder in terms of how you communicate with those sort of people.
yeah. 100%, like you said, and for me especially at a point in my career where securing sponsorship is everything. I'm hoping it will help me uh, work out the right ways to do it and not the right ways. But also, I'm a big fan of journalism for me is a really great thing. I mean, seeing what like you're doing at the moment and like what Understeer Podcast and all that, it's just great to see that you guys like you can see it's all growing. You can see especially in motorsport, which I think for so long was behind everything else. every other sport, it was just motorsport was this ancient thing, and now this year, I mean, two of my best mates who are huge football fans are suddenly huge F1 fans, and I think F1's doing a great job at making itself younger, and I think it's still got a long way to go, but it's doing well. And as I say, it's because of you guys doing what you're doing with YouTube and stuff that it's really helping promote the sport that we all love, and not just, like I said, not just F1 GTs. I'm at the moment there's not really a big uh, channel for GTs, or apart from the GT World channel itself. So, but like you said, it works parallel with you doing this, and more people taking part in the YouTube game, especially with F1. It's gonna bring light to other categories outside of F1, other drivers, other manufacturers, and I think that we all love to see it.
Oh, absolutely, Gus. Absolutely. And it's been fantastic chatting to you today and learning. I like doing these interviews, obviously, with young drivers because everyone has their own unique too. I've interviewed three different drivers
Yeah,
now, and all three of you have had vastly different ways in how you've got into it, how you're competing, what type of championships you've competed in as well. It's brilliant to kind of hear this, and hopefully people at home are finding it interesting listening and watching to your guys as well. And hopefully they're going to kind of follow you on in your kind of British GT Championship. Obviously, I'm wishing you the best of luck in that close title fight. It surely should be an exciting end to that 2020 season. That's kind of going to be at least it's a bit of excitement in this mental year that is 2020.
yeah,
You actually can
exactly.
get out and do something. That also must be a big relief for you.
Yeah, honestly, that we had the media day before COVID hit, and then it was everything's not happening. So that first time back in the car, I remember going into turn 4 at Oulton Park, which is a very heavy braking zone, and you get launched into your seatbelt. You're like, oh, I forgot how you get so used to the sim, and then you forget actually what it's like having brakes that feel like anchors. It is great, and I think also for me it's nice that I know that now that the British GT Championship's going underway, like all the other championships, it's great for the fans. I mean, I've been so bored without F1, and it's not even like we've had news to be able to latch onto. There's been nothing happening, so for it to all be back and all these championships now back on again, it's not only for the drives. For me, it's fantastic that I'm back racing, but for the fans, the people that love it, which is the reason our championships are even around. It is just fantastic that we all have something to watch again, which is just great.
It really is brilliant in so much. But guys, like I said, it's been fantastic talking to Gus today, and I'm going to obviously leave a link to his social medias in the description below. So make sure that you can give an opportunity to follow. Obviously, like you said, like I said at the start, you do a bit of writing, I think, for the blogs for the Understeer podcast. You obviously get on quite well with Ferg
Yeah,
on that front. So obviously, if you guys want to read, you mentioned journalism there as an interest as well. Definitely would recommend it on that front. But yeah, Gus, thank you so much for today. It's been a really enjoyable chat.
yeah. No, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
It's no problem at all. But guys, that is it from us today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are new around here to this channel or you haven't done so already, please like, subscribe and ding that bell. And obviously you can keep up to date with all our latest content that way. But that's it from us today, guys. So for now, UF1 fans, keep racing.